So we're here with Karly Tardiff, degree in human resources. First of all, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So yes, a degree in human resources. You were involved with Chain for Change, so help raise over $145,000 for Cancer Care Manitoba. You're also a part of Run Your Lungs Out as a committee member. So again, $30,000 raised for Cancer Care Manitoba. And also, I believe co-creator, right, of Winnipeg Is Good. So
No, I'm the full creator.
Full creator, the sole creator.
Yeah.
Come on.
Awesome.
Other than
Give her
Patrick
full
Laine, of course.
Other than, yes, the
Yeah.
slogan, Patrick Laine was the creator. And so $11,000 raised for Salome Mission, and then had a part two in conjunction with Mayor Brian Bowman to raise funds for the Rainbow Resource Center. And then now you've organized the Spurs Bras squad, so a weekly free running community. And you're also a committee member for Cancer Care Manitoba for the Guardian Angel Gala. Many hats, apparently.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it makes me sound like I do a lot or something.
Apparently. And media and public relations chair for the Wild Winter Canoe Race. So to start us off, what gives you the drive to help people and be involved in so many philanthropic projects?
I just feel like I had a really great upbringing, and I'm really lucky with my family and everything. So I just want to give back to people who might not be, and my health, obviously. Like, I'm really healthy for now. So if I can help people who aren't, like, that's all I want to do.
Well, that's the thing. I think with a degree in human resources, and I took a community development and recreation management degree, so it's that drive to want to help people and just whatever they're going through in life. It's like how you can equip them to be better suited to deal with whatever they're going through, or even if it is being able to fundraise money for different venues and places that do help people it's a great way to give back. So did you get a lot of that through your human resources degree?
To be honest, no.
Was that through University of Manitoba?
No, I went to school in Thunder Bay.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, like, I wasn't sure that I even wanted to pursue human resources, to be honest. And after I finished school, I just sold all my stuff and went to Thailand.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up back in Winnipeg, or back in Canada, back here in Winnipeg. And I kind of started in human resources, and now I work for a startup company. So
Cool.
It's kind of been like a...
So a definite transition between human resources to like being, I think startup, just the energy around it too. I spent a little bit of time when I was looking at pursuing youth programming. There's some co-working spaces. So
those are fairly new, right?
Yeah, there's one, downtown Winnipeg has one. And I looked at just...
What's co-working spaces? Is that like two different companies working in the same space? Or?
So essentially this one, I believe it's called North Forge, but they have a company, but then they have working space within that company. And it's typically a lot of, they have access to things like 3D printers or woodworking or all sorts of different things. But I wanted an office space to work from, and just to be able to be around people who are going through similar things, I thought would be really helpful. I actually found a space to work from that was free. So I worked from an office within an office. So basically my own little co-working space. And funny enough, that was a lot of computer programming for cancer software. So it was interesting to be around people who were doing it maybe at a different level, but we're still going through the intro phases of actually creating a business. And there's something about that energy that's just, I don't know, it's invigorating because when you're around like-minded people who are just creative and constantly building, it can be a really cool and rewarding experience. So maybe what's your experience been with being part of the startup energy?
Well, actually, the company I work for, Funding Change, they worked a lot with North Forge. So
Cool.
My experience so far has been really good because it's a fairly new company, but it's very flexible. And there's only 4 of us day to day. So there we wear a lot of hats. Like I do marketing stuff. I do some human resource stuff. I do sales. So I think it's just really eclectic, and I've been learning a lot there.
Yeah. So do you feel that the philanthropic projects and the experience that you've had from some of the things that you've done in the past has translated towards now what you're doing in terms of being able to wear all those hats and do a bunch of different things?
Yeah, directly, actually, because the company I work for, they have an online raffle and draw platform that nonprofits can utilize to fundraise. So a lot of places I've worked at, like, it kind of overlaps.
Nice. So with the Winnipeg Is Good campaign, what was the inspiration to make the shirts to support Salome Mission?
Well, the shirts themselves, like, it came from me reading the Patrick Laine Players Tribune article to my sisters, and we were laughing about it. And I Googled if there were some shirts being made because I was like, I'd wear a shirt that says Winnipeg is good. So I Googled it, and actually North Flag had one, but it was really, really small print. And it was just a long sleeve, and I wanted a crew neck. So I was just like, I'm just going to make my own. So I made myself one, and I wore it to a Jets game. And a bunch of people approached me, and they're like, hey, I would wear that.
Yeah, where'd you get that? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I made it.
That's awesome.
So like, you should make more. You should sell these. And I was like, if I'm going to sell someone else's quote, I'm going to raise money for something because I'm not going to profit off this. And it just evolved into like a sweater for a sweater kind of thing. So Silo Mission was a perfect fit.
That's super cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think it all coincided really well with, the Jets being in the playoffs.
Perfect
and so
timing.
there's so much excitement around it too. And one of the things is like, even in wearing the shirt, it's almost the feeling that you get from behind it is just like the quote that Patrick Laine just in his broken English saying, Winnipeg is good.
Yeah.
But then when you really come to think of it though, like even walking down the street, I know it's not one of yours. I'm apparently a poser.
Yeah. Riley's wearing a ripoff shirt.
Apparently a ripoff. I think it's from the Jets store because there's an official logo on there. But no, even the looks that you get from people walking past, you're like, yeah, Winnipeg is
They
good.
smile. It's
Yeah.
so nice. Yeah.
And there's just an awesome energy behind that too. But I even find putting the shirt on puts me in that state of like, yeah, there are good people and good things happening in Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, you can kind of get encompassed and entrenched in that. And then it just builds from there. It's like those like small niceties become really easy.
It really should just be the slogan of the city at this point.
Seriously.
You know, back in the, what was it before? What is it now, actually?
Friendly Manitoba,
Friendly
on
Manitoba,
the
just-
license plates.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we have an official, maybe Latin saying.
But I know it used to be Spirited Energy back, I think like a decade ago. They came up with Spirited Energy, and
I don't even know what that
everybody
means.
everybody hated it so much that they actually had to change it.
It's like
So-
Heart of the Continent, maybe.
Heart of the
that's it?
Continent.
Is that
That's
it?
what it is now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think
Spirited
Winnipeg is good
Energy-
is even better.
I agree.
Spirited Energy, I think that was on the Hydro building at one point.
Oh,
Yes.
they paid.
Yeah, something like that. So it was basically that quote, and then just wanting to do a good thing in the philanthropic side of things.
Yeah.
So have you always been a Jets fan?
I haven't. I used to be a Devils fan.
Oh, ouch.
God, how did that happen?
I think it was 1999. I watched my first ever Stanley Cup Finals, and the Devils won, and I was like, "That's my team." It's literally
That's
that
it.
simple. Scott Stevens and Brodeur, those are my guys.
I remember that era too.
It was awesome.
It was a magical era in hockey because I think around that time I would have considered myself a Colorado Avalanche fan because they were just exciting. They had the Zombie Nation goal song too, which is still one of the best.
Okay. Even when the old Jets were playing, I think Pittsburgh was my favorite team over them.
You were doing it wrong.
Back when Lemieux was playing, though, come on.
Come on, Teppo Numminen, Teemu Selanne. There's all the All-Stars. Nikolai Habibul. I think I could name almost the whole entire roster of Jets in like 95, 96
Really?
before.
That's crazy.
Maybe
Back when you
don't
were
quote
born.
me on that, but actually the funniest thing of that, even until a couple years ago, we had the Jets Going Away CD. There was and it was a bunch of local Canadian artists that redid their hit songs, but with Jets players and like songs about the Jets.
Really?
It's like, I
That's
don't want to
hilarious.
sing it because
I want you to sing it. You brought
Yeah.
it up now.
Alexei is one hot Russian jet. And that was BTO. That was Bachman Turner Overdrive. Oh, God. There was some other great hits on that entire CD.
I feel like you need to post that, like the soundtrack.
I think I found a couple of them on YouTube. So somebody beat me to it and already uploaded it for the world to hear because,
I need to hear this.
yeah, it was pretty magical.
And you should remake them with your amazing voice, Riley.
Well, it's hard without any music. I mean, it's not recording or like studio quality recordings. Come on. But I guess, well, funny enough, I feel like the recording equipment has come such a long way since then.
Yeah.
Probably does sound almost better. All the digitizing and stuff. So how do you feel about the Jets season and what they were able to accomplish?
It was amazing, but it was heartbreaking. I feel like the city went into a depression after.
Yeah, I think that was going to happen anyways because people were like going out every single weekend and spending all their money. I think it was almost like, I remember, so when the Jets first made the playoffs, I was actually bartending at the Pint, so downtown. And even though we were 4-0 the first time we made the playoffs, it was like after 4 nights of bartending before and after Jets rushes, it was like, God, I don't know how many more rounds I could do.
It
of
was
this.
tiring.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sure it was crazier this time around, too, because they did so well in the playoffs.
There's so many rounds. And Kate, like after Christmas, when everyone's in that rut because they just spent so much money on gifts and everything, I feel like that happened.
Yeah,
that happened except Jets.
Yeah.
it was post Jets. It was cool
Yeah.
to see it grow, though, the party around MTS Center,
downtown,
and then
yeah.
there were like different street parties and
Yeah.
even tents and stuff that you could go to. But just the energy, I think, well, it was really cool being part of when the Jets came back, and that energy of just partying at Portage and Main, and just it just didn't matter who you were celebrating the Jets coming back.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
created, I would say, unity within the city. And then to actually now, however many years later, I guess 5 or 6 years later, I'm trying to think of
I
when
don't
the
even
Jets.
know now.
2012, I think, was the first.
When they were in the playoffs?
No, I think that's when they came back.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah. So we're what, 6 seasons, 7 seasons in, and
Yeah.
now to
Six just passed, yeah.
yeah. So it's exciting to just have a team. It's like I think we've really built in the right way and brought the right kinds of people in.
Yeah.
And now it's I thought even going into the playoffs, it's like make it to the third round would be an amazing feat just for the city and everybody, and to have excitement around hockey again. And then obviously it is heartbreaking to lose to Las Vegas. Especially, did you guys watch the intro to the games, like the Las Vegas games?
Yeah,
They were
the
so
Knight slaying
excessive.
They were really, I mean,
There's too much.
the Knight versus the Jet or whatever.
yeah,
It's
the
like-
Jet coming at him and he's attacking. I thought that was maybe the silliest thing.
It's because they have too much money there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's very much the show-oriented place. Like everybody once they're done their actual career.
You think that's bad? Wait till they get their football team.
They're getting a football team too.
Well, yeah, the Oakland,
Oakland Raiders are moving.
formerly the Oakland
Yeah.
Raiders. They're the LA Raiders, and then they're gonna go to Vegas.
Yeah, next season, I believe, right? This is the last season for them as a Raiders. I don't know if their name is changing.
No, there's too much money in having the Raiders because they've always been the black sheep team.
Yeah.
And they have such a great history that goes along with it. I know this is
I was
probably
gonna say, I know nothing.
You
I'm
know
just
nothing.
like, I'm learning something today.
You know nothing, Jon Snow. Yeah. But they just have so much of the history that when they shift over, it just makes sense.
It makes sense, yeah, for sure. They keep the original fan base and everything then.
So I also wanted to know what impact you were hoping to have with all these projects on the community and the world. I know this is a pretty heavy question. But
No, it is, and I've been asked this before actually. Basically, I just wanted to promote inclusion, and just whoever you are, it's something that can unite people, especially the Winnipeg Is Good thing. There was people buying these shirts who had no clue about hockey, but like we created a hashtag and had people like kind of, you could click on it and just see other people wearing it, and then it's like on the street, people are coming up, like I'd be wearing my sweater, people would come up and be like, oh, hey, nice sweater and stuff. Like, oh, yeah, he sold it to me. Like, I don't know. It was just like that sense of community and including everyone together.
Do you have plans, or have you thought about like creating something that can go more national rather than like Winnipeg Is Good? It's awesome locally, but something that can go almost Canada wide.
I haven't.
Something
I
in the
really
works?
haven't. No.
Do you always feel that you've been then the creative type in terms of coming up with ideas for things and just, yeah, like having that mindset where you want to be continuously trying new things or just developing different ideas?
I think so, but I didn't realize it until I moved here. And it was like, I've always known I'm a control freak, and I create something and then I just have to do everything a certain way and like get it done, you know? But I realize now that I think like if I come up with an idea and build it out like that, I can be really creative like that. And I've really honed in on it since living here.
Yeah, I think I'm almost the opposite, where I've come to the same place a little bit, but I started the opposite. I feel that I've always been an ideas person where it's like just thinking of things in a different way. I think I had a science teacher one time say that I had a scientific brain because I would not go from point A to point B, but I'd go from point A all the way, like circle back around and find this back way of finding the same answer, which is probably way more work, but it was just like I found the creative way to find the answer as opposed to, you know, the textbook ABCD way of finding the answer. But I'd also say that I maybe lacked a little bit of that direction, like putting all the pieces together and getting that process down before ever actually being able to do something. Like this podcast probably would have never happened in previous me because I would have been too scared. I would have been like, I want to have a podcast,
Now
but what do I do? Oh, microphones. Well, what do I need? And then it would just, things would never get done, and I'd never put that plan to action, I think. Whereas, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, like, I feel like when I do something, I think of it big, like end game, and then work backwards.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask if you think yourself more process oriented or product oriented. So process being sort of from the why, and then product being the end result.
I used to think I was process, but now maybe I'm product because like Chain for Change, for example, when I first moved here, I didn't have a job, didn't have any friends, didn't have anything going on. So I decided I want to train for my first full marathon. So I was researching that, and I came across this blog of this marathoner who was trying to be the top 1% of people in the world. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And I guess this criteria, you have to break a Guinness World Record and you have to run a full marathon on every continent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was just looking at what records he'd broken, and they were all chain records, like a chain of people floating down a river in inner tubes, like the longest one, or the longest chain of people doing yoga simultaneously. And I was just sitting in my apartment. I'm like, oh, what chain record can we break here? Like, oh, longest chain of ice skaters. We have one of the longest ice trails. So I was like, okay, so this is the scene. We're going to be on the ice. We're going to be breaking the record. The mayor's going to be at the front. All the TV crews are going to be there. Ace Burpee's going to be emceeing it. And we're going to raise a bunch of money for charity. And then I just worked backwards.
That's crazy. So you have the end result all in your mind, and you just kind of figure out how to get there, right?
Exactly. And you don't know. You haven't done it before, right? So
That's true, yeah.
You just stumble about, run into people who like kind of guide you, and then you just put it all together. It sounds so ad hoc, but it is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I've done some event planning and things before where it's sometimes you're given an idea, but not the what it looks like, what's expected, what's the plan. So you have to just formulate okay, there's this happening. Mm-hmm. And one example was there was a costume parade that I was hosting and planning and things. And so it was, okay, where do they go? What do they do? And what's going to be involved? And then so bringing the different pieces together. So almost in the same way where it's like, okay, there's this person here and like these mascots and these different things happening in the background. And it's just like, it takes a lot of organizational skills to get that. And then to actually see your vision happen though is so rewarding in the end, where it's like,
it's insane.
Yeah, it's you get to see all those pieces in motion. It is a little bit chaotic sometimes the day
It's a lot chaotic.
Well, and especially if you're taking that ownership over, this is something that you've planned, so you want it to go off
exactly
and look professional and that make
and
sure
hold it together the whole time. People are coming up to you, what do we do here? What about this? And you're just like, okay.
Try not to freak out.
Yeah, try not to scream right now.
But yeah, no, that takes it takes a very certain kind of person to be able to pull all that off, right? I feel like a lot of people would be intimidated.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so it's kind of incredible to me that you can actually see that end result and just kind of work towards it. Whereas people would see that as daunting. Like, oh my God, I have no idea how to get there. I'd have to do this, 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 and this, and this.
Yeah,
whereas
it's like a
you
puzzle.
are like, yeah. See, I don't think most people would see it that way though. So that's what's amazing to me is that you can actually put that puzzle together. People will be like, I have no idea where to start, right? It's like throwing a 1,000-piece puzzle on the table and they're like, I don't know, I'm done. That's it.
For like the puzzle analogy, it's like you build the corners and then you build the border.
That's how
and
you
then
do
you
puzzles.
work your way in. Yeah.
That's why I could never build one.
Well, I look for things. See, I don't build the outside with puzzles. I sort of just try and find similar colors, put them together, piece it together a little bit at a time. And then you do find the border pieces and you can typically go from there.
See, that's the hard
or like
way.
the building analogy. You start from the bottom, right?
Yeah.
You can't start from the top.
I missed that. You can't start.
If you build a house, you can't build a house starting with the roof, right? You have to build the foundation and then
Unless
walls.
You get it built and
then hoist it.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that came up though was start with the end in mind is something to definitely, with people in the planning process, it's like you always have to have an end in mind.
Yeah, your goal basically.
Your
right?
goal,
yeah.
whatever it is that you're designing or creating, it's like having a vision of that is super important. Mm-hmm. But then there's often times where it can even evolve throughout the process because either certain aspects aren't possible or what have you. So I think being creative and coming up with those solutions, and even sometimes with things that I've ran, it's been in the moment coming up with some kind of backup plan where you can make things work and planning in advance for that too. I mean, if it rains and there's an event happening outside, is there an inside place to go? Is it canceled? Like you have to come up with those plans in advance. And it can be daunting sometimes just to...
Our event was on the river, right?
Yeah.
It was the coldest day of the winter. I'm not even kidding you. I was checking the weather religiously all week. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's minus 15 this day. It's going to be minus 37 this day. Awesome. It was
perfect.
The coldest day. Yeah.
So doing it in February was a bold choice?
Well, it was hit and miss, right? Because last year Festival, it was melted out, right?
Right.
So we did it the weekend before Festival started. And we figured it would be safe because January is usually the coldest month. So we're like, okay, first week of February, that should be safe. Plus, it was World Cancer Day. So we're like, we have to do it on this day. But yeah, ended up being the coldest day. So we were just a bit short of the record. So we were literally pulling people off the trail. We were like, hey, do you want to break a world record today? Hey, come in this line.
Well, and that's almost how the best things happen. It just, you have to think in the moment and just organically be like, okay, how can we make this work the best? And so sometimes it does just take pulling people off the side or whatever to get involved. And so it's just having that get up and go mentality where you can just make things happen.
How many people did you need to break that record?
370 was the record.
Wow. And how many did you have?
395.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would just talk like a little bit closer.
A little bit closer. I'm a little far away.
Just make
That's
sure.
okay.
Okay.
Just in comparison, because sometimes I yell into the mic and that one picks
And I'm
me
so
up super
quiet,
loud.
though.
So what's the next record you're planning on breaking?
I don't think I have plans to break a record. Right now, the current one is pending with Guinness still. Like, I submitted the video documents online. They didn't accept it. They asked me to mail it to London, like a USB stick of it. It got sent back. So I just mailed it to New York this week. So I'm still
strict.
waiting. So I'm like, Guinness, I don't want to do it anymore. But I'm hoping to maybe not do it again this winter, but the next winter, but kick it up a notch because there's also a Guinness record for, I guess this answers the question. Yeah, I'm like, it's just like, oh yeah, there's this actually
There is
this
none,
record.
but there is.
No, you can break the world record for most funds raised on an on-ice event.
Oh.
So that would be like 2 records then.
Yeah. 2 records at the same time.
Yeah. Up the ante a little.
So are you hoping to be in that 1%?
Oh no, I don't care. Not at all. I don't want to run a marathon on every continent.
No?
No.
But did you run your first full marathon?
Yeah, last summer.
Which marathon was it?
Manitoba.
Nice.
Yeah. I actually just ran my first full marathon this
How
year.
was
as
it?
well. It was a daunting process. So up to this year, 10 miles was the max I'd ran at once.
Yeah.
Because I come from a football background, which was run 40-yard sprints all day, but it wasn't run long distances.
Yeah.
And I was told not to run long distances because it would slow me down in those.
Really?
Anyways.
I don't even,
beside-
what
it was
position were
trainers.
you?
I was a running back.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means. I don't know why I asked.
The one
It involves
who
running.
It sounds like he runs a lot, yeah.
sounds like he runs
Yeah.
a lot, but just has to be crazy because he runs through all the tall big guys into more tall big guys. So
Do you hold the ball?
I
during
mean,
it?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's the quarterback, the guy that throws typically, and sometimes they're athletic now and run around, but the guy behind that he hands the ball to sometimes, that's the running back.
Oh.
And so he's got to run through all the big linemen and then into
Gotcha.
linebackers. And if you look at me, I mean, 6'6" is a typical lineman in this.
Oh, I thought you were
CFL,
saying
but-
you were 6'6".
Okay,
Oh,
that's
Riley,
a lie.
you're reaching.
Yeah, I'm 3 inches taller than Jayse, as you can all tell at home. Yeah, but I played running back, and so yes, there's that element of just you have to be a little bit fearless with it. But then flash forward, so I started training for marathons. I mean, last summer I started running for the first time, actually taking it, well, maybe not seriously, but regimented, doing it at least once or twice a week, and worked up to 10 miles. And then this year, I decided with my very first run in new shoes that I would go 10 miles.
Worst idea.
And funny enough, though,
But you made it just fine, right?
well, not only that, I went 15 miles in the end because I decided that I had to go a little bit further than I'd ever went.
But that's when
Say, were your
it
feet
wasn't so
mangled?
easy.
No, you know what? I swear by Under Armour, I have shoes with the Michelin tire bottom.
Okay, so let's just talk about shoes for a second.
Yeah,
No,
let's get
okay, so
into
you
it.
wear Under Armour shoes?
Yes.
I've only heard bad things about Under Armour shoes for marathon training.
Well, I will say the exact opposite because
Interesting.
so with the tire bottom, and it's literally Under Armour shoes with the Michelin tire, like there's Michelin, the symbol underneath. And I find it worked as a shock absorber. So
Yeah.
your foot just,
Do you
don't feel
heel
the full
slam or do you,
impact.
like, how do you?
I think I'm pretty flat-footed, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. So maybe a little heel toe, but nothing, I don't think too major. And I wouldn't say I have knee problems from that. It's more so doing too much yoga and maybe
Oh, really?
hyperextending a couple times.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
run?
I used to. I'm currently recovering from ACL surgery.
Oh, wow.
So
What shoes did you wear? Because I was in Asics for the longest time, and now I'm like a heel slammer,
Okay.
and I've switched to Brooks. I'm very
Really?
curious,
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually always swore, as a runner, I always swore by Adidas.
Adidas? Really?
Yeah. So I actually found it, because I am a heel toe runner. I always found it easier on my shins when I wore Adidas.
Did you get shin splints?
A lot, yeah. For the
I
first,
started
especially when I
getting
first started running, it went away over time, but I always have minor. And then when I switched from, so I used to wear Nike before that to Adidas.
I started with Nike as well. Do you wear compression socks?
No, I know I don't wear
you?
compression socks, but
No,
you
I
don't?
don't wear compression. I just wear regular athletic socks.
Yeah.
But no, I swear by, I'm an Adidas and Under Armour guy for the fact that it fits the shape of my foot better.
Do you have wide feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have pretty wide feet, and I find Nikes fit a lot more narrow.
They're narrow, yeah, I agree.
And so I've done this research in terms of football cleats. It was always the Adidas and Under Armour cleats that I enjoyed the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so just from that, I knew that it would be a proper shape for my foot.
Okay.
And then just trying them on in the store and walking around in them, I went.
Where'd you buy them? Just
At the-
drilling questions
Just
about
drilling.
shoes.
Hey, no worries.
It's actually at the new Tuxedo Outlet Mall. They have the
Oh.
Under Armour store, and actually they were an amazing deal at that time too.
Perfect.
So I don't know if they still have those deals going on.
Actually,
but-
right now they do all the back to school stuff.
Oh, yeah, all the
You
sales
can get
right
shoes
now.
for super cheap right now.
I got to go back there because obviously I've logged probably. It would be crazy to log the amount of miles I've done this year in terms of. So I did my first 3 Spartan races as well.
Oh, really?
The longest one being 13 miles on a mountainside. So trudging up and sprinting
Just
down.
a half marathon on a mountainside.
That
No
took me
biggie.
an hour longer than my full marathon did.
Really? How long was your full?
3:45.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was aiming for a little faster than that, but so I don't know what happened to you, but I found the 20-mile mark was just hitting a wall.
Mile 22 for me.
Mile 22.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Like
you
my
made it a
hip
little
locked
further.
up. It was awful.
Your hip locked up.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I
that's the
dragged my
worst.
leg basically for a mile, I felt like. But it was good after.
Yeah, you were able
Then I
to
got
fight
shin
through it.
splints.
Shin splints are the worst. I think that
Yeah.
I would take hip lock over a shin splint any day.
Yeah, and it didn't happen until like literally a month after I finished. So I don't think I took enough rest as I should have probably. And then the shin splints.
So said you were in what kind of shoes, Brooks?
Asics.
Oh, Asics. Okay, I've heard good things about Asics. I've never
They
worn
were so
Asics.
good,
Yeah.
yeah. And then that happened. I think just because like my leg locked up and then my form changed a bit and then
Yeah, you're putting pressure on probably on the other leg too much.
Exactly.
Yeah, it happens.
That's the worst thing is just overcompensation when something little is happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what happened to me. So, well, it's gone now, but with that hyperextended right knee, I was favoring that going into that mountain race. And then so on the downhills, I think I put too much pressure on the outside of my other leg.
oh, okay.
So the outside of my other knee would lock up for the next couple weeks and just get really sore whenever I did anything active. So it is really tough when you're especially running long distances.
Yeah.
Those little things over a long period of time are really going to add up.
I'm curious to know what kind of things you've heard about Under Armour that are bad. I'm not speaking for or against Under Armour. I've never worn Under Armour shoes.
Just that it wears out really fast and they tear and they're just not good quality. Is
Oh,
what
really?
I've heard. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I like their clothes. I mean,
I
I
feel
wear
like
their clothes a lot.
the Michelin tire one must.
Michelin tire, I don't know. I swear by them, but they've probably made it at least 250, probably 300 miles.
Really.
And
That's
they
pretty
say
good.
that you're supposed to replace them after 200.
Yeah.
They're
But I mean, like that.
they're not worn down.
That material must last longer than most shoes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even the
You'd
sides
think.
are holding together pretty well. I wasn't crazy about them going in, but they've held up.
That's
And-
awesome.
Yeah. And they're highlighter orange, I'd say. So that I definitely stick out like a sore thumb when I'm running outside too. What got you into running?
I actually played ice hockey my whole life, and I was in high school, and I don't think you guys have them here, but they're victory laps. You like take an extra year of high school when you're not sure what to do with your life.
Oh, we don't have that.
Okay, well we
Take
have
an extra year of high school?
Yeah, you can just take extra classes or whatever.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so you can do it for 1
Who
year.
would do that?
I did. It's like, I don't know what to do with my life, and you get another year of like athletic eligibility. So I played hockey for another year, but
We
you're
definitely
so
don't have
confused. You're
that.
like, what?
We called
No.
it grade 13 and you had to apply.
Oh, maybe
With a
it's like
special
similar.
I'm pretty sure everyone here after grade 12 takes all their homework and accumulated paper,
Throws it.
up, or it burns it. at
Yeah, I
the-
certainly
the
didn't want to do
bonfire.
schoolwork. I just was like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm going to play hockey one more year. So
That's fair.
I
so you did it for
decided-
sports.
yeah, exactly. So I trained for, I just decided to start running that summer before that season. I was like, because I was like biking and stuff before, but I was like, yeah, I'll try running. I ran like a kilometer and was dying. So
That's
then
pretty good.
it was a challenge for yourself then, right? You're like, okay, I have to get better. And then I think 3 years later, I decided to run. I started doing races, so I started doing half marathons, and then I did a few of those. And I was like, okay, I should try a full, but I think it's one and done.
Did you play hockey your entire life growing up?
Yeah.
So how did you find? So I hear a lot of issues when hockey players do a lot of running is that they run into a lot of knee problems. Did you find that to be an issue when you switched?
Not really, but when I was playing hockey, I damaged my PCL from running into the boards one time. But that's been kind of on and off. But the shin splints are worse right now than anything.
It's funny. It's just keeping on top of those little injuries. I think
Yeah.
no matter what, you just have to battle through something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, shin splints get better over time.
Have you
honestly.
tried dry needling?
No, I've never heard of that.
Oh, okay. I did it for my shin splints and it works.
What is that?
They literally stick needles into your shins.
Nope.
I hate needles
Nope.
too, but it works. Seriously.
The other one that I've seen a lot lately is cupping. So people, is it called Reiki something? But so they do the cups and they heat them up and it pulls your skin up. So it's it's the little circular
Okay.
blobs you see on all those people.
Yeah.
CrossFit people do that a lot, I feel.
Oh, CrossFit people. They're creative, I'll give them that. But it's something that I never really wanted to get into.
No, I think CrossFit gets a bad rap, but like it's not as bad as people think.
If you do it safe.
Safe and properly, yes.
Exactly.
I think there's a common misconception, and people think that just getting whatever exercise or workout you're doing done is the end goal, but it's not. It's doing it properly.
Yeah, because I did it in college, and the gym I was going to, the head trainer guy there wasn't so keen on safety, and that ruined it for me at that time. But if you do it safe and people are promoting the proper form, because Olympic lifting shouldn't be taken lightly. But no, I was like laughing.
That's good fun.
But actually, there's so much technique, and you can't just be like, okay, go do a snatch.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
it's like
especially
go
like,
heavier.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the silliest things. So I had never done Olympic lifting. I'd done a little bit working with trainers way earlier on. And then partway through an off season in my football career, we had a trainer come in and swear by Olympic lifting. And so here I am going, well, I can muscle this up, but I don't really know the technique. And it took me probably at least a month or two, probably 2 months to figure out the proper technique. And that's a big portion of your off season, especially when you're doing that January, February, and then you have spring camps
You
coming
consider
up.
things like, especially Olympic lifting, like things like snatches, there's so many different body parts working together.
Yeah.
It's a full body workout.
Exactly.
So all it takes is one wrong little twinge or movement or locking out one joint, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
There goes your knee, there goes your back, there goes your shoulder. As someone who's been there, it's not fun.
How'd you? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, how'd you hurt your knee? If you don't mind me asking.
I
I talk fast too.
That's okay.
And quiet.
So originally it happened. So it initially was a problem back in the day. I actually, about 8 years ago, I went to go pay for a parking ticket downtown. And when I went to go pay for the parking ticket, there was no parking available. So I parked illegally to go pay for my parking ticket. And I saw the parking officer or whatever they're called walking near my car. So I
You're like, "Not
decided to book
again."
it back.
Yeah.
And I jumped over this about 4 foot, maybe 3.5 feet fence that was kind of rotten. And as I vaulted over it, it gave way. And a piece of wood kind of scraped up my shin. And it didn't even really hurt that much. But it got infected about a week later, and I almost lost my leg. I had to go on antibiotics for about 2 weeks straight. I'd go in every single day to get antibiotics, so it didn't go. The infection didn't spread any further.
Wow.
Yeah, but because the infection was so big, it was putting pressure on my leg, and so that's why I didn't feel any pain.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it, and that when I started my marathon running as well. So, and not properly, I would say. So I initially started losing weight through running, and then, but I lost a lot of muscle too, and so I was putting a lot of impact and pressure on my feet, especially when I first started running. I wasn't using proper shoes, so I was using cross training shoes to run in, and my shin splints got really bad then. But what put it over the top was years later at Sky Zone actually on the trampoline, just randomly ran up the side of a trampoline, jumped off and kind of landed in the middle and braced my knee a little too much, and it popped out of place twice because you're like bouncing around, and so it popped out. I bounced back on it, popped out again. And it took about 2 years for me to go through the process of seeing a doctor, getting an MRI, seeing a specialist, seeing a surgeon, then booking my surgery, 2 years, and then finally got it done the end of May. And it's been a lengthy recovery process.
Whole process.
Yeah, and I've had a complication since my surgery. I've had a blood clot in my upper thigh, which is causing swelling in my lower foot. So I thought I'd be off work for 8 weeks. It's been almost 12 weeks now, and hopefully I'm going to go back to work in a couple of weeks now. But it's been a process, and I'm just glad to finally get back into a normal routine. I know I've gained weight over the last 3 months, but you know what? 3 months is nothing in the grand scheme of things, and I eventually go back to playing sports and hopefully things like football and basketball again too. Yeah. So yeah.
It's so tough when the process, I think it's the same thing as even construction where it's take the time they say, double it, and then you're even still going to be recovering after that. Because I went through fractured ankles where it's, you'll be 6 to 8 weeks, but then they don't say, okay, 6 to 8 weeks, you'll lose all your muscle mass in that leg. You're going to have to build from square one, and then
crazy.
You'll have imbalances, and it'll end up taking a year.
It's crazy how fast you lose your muscle. If I compare both my legs, one's like half the size of the other one. I'm like, what happened in like 8 week span? It's crazy. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. And actually, it's funny. I was talking to my boyfriend about this. I was like, I just remember being a kid and being like, if I had one wish, it would be you could get in shape and then not lose it.
Right?
What kind of wish is that?
Go to the gym for a year and then never have to go back ever again.
You could go back, but you could just keep getting better too.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you just would never get lower than you are.
Well,
it's funny that you mentioned that too, because I'm a personal trainer, so a lot of people have that misconception that, and I don't think they realize it, that they can just go with the trainer for a year, get in shape, and then they don't have to do anything for the rest of their life. They're in shape. Like that's not true, right? You gotta maintain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm the worst with that because I'm a fluctuator for sure. But even
you work out twice a day, right? So.
Well, at this point in time, so I'm letting myself rest from this last Spartan race, which was about, I guess, a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago now. And so I've been doing yoga and RPM classes because, well, basically I don't want to get out of the routine of going to the gym. So I go, well, I have to go do something. And then what's low impact enough that I'm not going to risk hurting things even more? Because I have a little bit of a shoulder impingement and then my knee's a little sore, but feel like stretching is probably the right thing to do. And RPM classes are fun because you get a good sweat on and then, and that's healthy for you.
I feel like one thing I've learned though with all this is if you feel something, take care of it. And it's so easy to not.
Don't ignore your body. Yeah.
Exactly. Especially in the running community. It's almost like some people take it as a badge. They're like, oh yeah, my ankle's this, my hip's that. And they're out there going for a 10-mile run. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Now though, but back, like even last year, I'm like, okay, yeah, just push through it. It's not going to get better.
I think my mentality is exactly that because playing football, you're used to that physical battering and having bruised arms or something. You'd go out and warm up and you'd have a Charlie horse so your legs barely working and then you get going, your adrenaline kicks in and then you don't really feel it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's something that needs to change with football though. What do they say now? Like 50% of kids coming out of high school who played football actually had concussions and they didn't even realize it. So then
I'd be in that.
They end up with long-term problems.
I mean, it's all the research that has been done has pointed towards it's not good in terms of concussions and the effects long term and head traumas and potential for things later on in life from that too. So it is definitely a worry. And that's probably one of the reasons why, I mean, I wanted to pick a sport or something to train for that was competitive, but I almost felt that I knew I had to take contact out of it because I worry in terms of it would have been nice to turn pro in football, but at the same time, I wonder long term if that would have even been good for me because
it's a short career, right? For a reason.
Yeah.
Well, who's that football player? And he's like a mathematician as well. And he ended up leaving football because of the concussions and the scares. And he's like, no, my brain is too important.
Was it NFL, CFL?
I think it was NFL.
This is going to bother me because there've been a couple of guys due for different reasons. I remember Glenn Coffey, a backup running back, but I think that was more God had a purpose for him and he decided that football wasn't in the cards for him anymore. Okay. But mathematician, I can't think of who it would be.
He was like half the year, like during the year he was taking classes and going to school to get his PhD in math, I believe.
It's going to bug Riley now because he knows every name in football.
I want to say, was it San Francisco, one of their linebackers? Because it's not Navarro Bowman, but it might be somebody else. I think somebody retired super young from there as well.
Yeah, I have no idea on the name, but it was really interesting because I was like, oh, he's a football player and he's like a math whiz. That's really cool.
See, but the thing is, it's a little bit easier when you've made your millions of dollars to make that decision and go,
Is it,
okay,
though?
I think I'm good.
I feel like
But-
that greed can lead to more greed, though. Like, how can I keep making more money?
And maybe like not even the greed, but it becomes your identity too, right?
True. Yeah.
So like people retiring from hockey, for example, those are the guys who have had all this head trauma and then they're going into these depressions because now they're facing this like midlife crisis essentially, and they're like, who am I? And on top of
what am I
that,
going to do with my life?
yeah, and that's why some guys just stick it out for so long in minor leagues, right? Because they don't know who else they are.
Yeah. Identity plays a big part of it. I think there's been some good documentaries. I wish I remember the name of the one that I watch. And I've watched the guy speak before too. Anyways, but basically the head traumas in being an enforcer, so the fighters in hockey and the things that they struggle with after. And it's bad. It turns into substance abuse. And I mean, and it's well documented that multiple guys, I think it's The Last Gladiators was one of them that I watched. And so, it's insane what they go through mentally. And so they see themselves, it's almost the same thing as a soldier where it's the protector mentality. So they go out there to protect their teammates, but then they have to fight. So it's something very aggressive. But then you can't do that on the street after you retire. It's against the law. So you then have to, and they struggle with forming a new identity because it's so tied to that.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of things, I actually did research in a sport history class when I was going through university. And there was a great book of the 1970s Team Canada hockey. And it talked about how basically these were kids that never really had to grow up because you turn pro at 17 or 18, and then all of a sudden you're making money doing the thing you love.
Yeah.
And then there's women and drinking and drugs, and so you get caught up in that sort of lifestyle.
Yes.
And you still see that in sports to this day.
It's almost a delayed kind of finding yourself, right? Like you said, they don't know what to do with their life after this hockey career. But like I think that's a lot of us coming out of like high school or college, right? When we're 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
They just don't have that because like Riley said, right out of high school, they're kind of right into their hockey career or their sports career. And so they never really have to grow up or find out or ask the question of who they are.
Yeah, for sure.
Strangely, it's a thing that they say about addiction, that typically your mentality is that when you start your addiction. So in terms of if you become an alcoholic at the time that you become a pro hockey player, likely it stunts your mental growth in that capacity, and you get used to that, and the fact that it's a self-sustaining lifestyle. I mean, you have other people in the room that are likely doing the same things, going to parties, and so it can easily just, guys wake up at the end of their career and that's what they've been doing for the past 15 years or 10 years, whatever it is. So you wonder all these stories of maybe missed greatness in certain people where, but you think of a guy like Burmy with all the talent in the world, and not to say that he drinks or does drugs or anything, but it's like all those stories of guys who have fallen off the map and had so much potential, and you wonder maybe if that plays part in it.
Well, we're all
Could
human,
very
right?
well, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, even the best of us have come from some sort of dark times. Like look at like big idols like Dwayne Johnson. He talks about his past, or Arnold Schwarzenegger even.
All people on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Like they've all had that dark past with either drugs or alcohol or both. And
well, I will flat out admit to it in my own life that I've had those issues, and that I would say it's sports related in the sense that you work really hard during the week, and then all of a sudden the weekend hits. And I think I've talked about this a little bit before on the podcast, but it's just that work hard, play hard mentality where you Monday to Friday, and sometimes you're doing film on Sunday or whatever it is. It's like you get some time to go out and be social and do other things. You end up going wild and maybe taking it too far. So that led to like drinking and drugs in my life. So it's not something I'm proud of. It's not, and even in that state, I knew it wasn't something I wanted to be doing, but it just seemed as though it was a release from that lifestyle, which, yeah, it's I don't know. It can lead down a dark path and not come back. And some people actually, it seems that even running into people that were doing similar things at similar times, seeing them now, a lot of them seem more fulfilled in life and just in what they're doing now than they did while they were playing the sport they love, which is a really interesting to know that happens and that kind of growth can happen for different people.
Well, you can kind of like see where you were at a time that maybe was dark for you and compare it to where you are now. And then it's easier to kind of not settle into where you are now, but accept where you are now because mentally you're in a better place, I think.
Yeah.
That's definitely, I think, part of it for sure. You're drawing on that experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's making you a better person now than maybe the choices that you made back then. But it's like sports, they can't be, I'm not a professional athlete, but that can't be easy. You're on the road all the time. You're committed to that sport for most of the week. So whatever time you get to yourself or to let some steam off, like you go hard, right?
Yeah. And some people can find a life balance and some people do it really well. You see the athletes that, well, there's ones that seemingly have it together and maybe don't. I think of Tiger Woods as an example of there were some things happening in the background for a long time that nobody knew about that he was dealing with. And then there are people, I would say Sidney Crosby is somebody who there's not much documented other than the injuries and the concussions that he's had, where he seems to be doing great things in the community. He seems to be well put together, and you never really hear people. So it's interesting that you maybe have differing personalities even in this same dressing room sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Crosby. Yeah, I guess you've never really heard of the bad side of him, really, eh?
I mean, and something could come out that we don't know about, but he seems a pretty safe bet.
Like, how old is Crosby now? He's got to be, what, 26, 27?
No, he's
older than me.
He's in his
Is
30s.
he?
Yeah.
No, really?
Yeah.
Man,
It's
I feel
probably
like
about
I guess
30.
he has been playing for a long time now.
Time flies.
Yeah. I guess I'm old.
Yeah. Getting old, Jayse, getting old. So I did want to know what the message behind Sports Bras Squad was before we get outside of talking.
Yeah, we just went on a whole tangent.
Couple
there.
tangents.
Yeah,
We
it
say
happens.
that typically happens. It's just,
Yeah, but no, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
Conversation-wise, yeah. Well, Spurs Bras Squad, it started with a woman in New York who essentially was just sick of not the ideal of a runner, but just like comparing her body to runners' bodies and just comparing her body in general. And she was a sweaty girl. She just wanted to run with Sports Bra. So one day she was just like, yep. And yeah, she got some kickback, but it just made her want to do it more. And she's actually started a movement because of this. And my co-leader, Lindsay, she held there's a global sports bra day and it's in June. And she held an event for that. And I wasn't able to make it. So I was just like, hey, we should start a club. And she's like, yeah, that's great. Because me personally, I struggle with an eating disorder. And this really hits close to home for me because there are young girls being exposed on a daily basis. Like when I was growing up, I didn't have a phone, thank God. And like girls nowadays, that they open their phone first thing in the morning, they're comparing themselves to people. And if we can have like a space or a safe space for people to come and just accept their body and like just celebrate what it can do. And it's not just for women, obviously. Yesterday, I was like, what day is it? But yesterday we had it was like half men, half women. And it's great because not just women are exposed to this kind of comparison and pressure.
Yeah, I think of the growth in terms of when you're young. You have the Barbie doll and the Ken doll, or you have the Barbie doll and the G.I. Joe. And so it's these unrealistic body types that we're supposed to live up to in terms of media and a lot of the things that we consume on social media too. Mm-hmm. I see that as being so, it can be really detrimental to people.
Absolutely.
And actually one of the things I thought of, men's eating disorders is actually, it's something the percentage of increase is because of social media is almost a 300% increase.
Because of social media?
Well, since the starting of social media, eating disorders such as bulimia and anorexia have increased at least 300% in men.
Whoa, I had no idea. That's a crazy statistic.
Yeah, and I've actually known somebody who's suffered with an eating disorder, a male too, and typically males don't talk about those types of things. It seems like a women's issue. But
do you think that's largely due to like unrealistic standards being set on platforms such as Instagram, or?
I would say yes. I like, it's not obviously Instagram that's doing it, but that's what people are liking. That's what people are posting about, because you don't see someone who feels like their body doesn't measure up to the Barbie doll going and posting photos of themselves in bikinis on the beach. It's all the girls who look great by beauty standards, right? So then that's what you're seeing. That's what's populating your feed. So that's what you're going to be comparing yourself to.
Yeah, you think that's the way you're supposed to look?
But yeah, I guess a lot of people don't realize that those people in those photos a lot of times they don't look like that 24/7. Usually like say bodybuilders, but when they cut and they stop like drinking fluids and eating properly just to get the physique that they want, like that's not sustainable.
No. But they're not going to tell you that.
No, and on top of that, sometimes a lot of times it's photoshopped. Come on, guys.
Yeah. And just picture like a 12-year-old girl looking at that and trying to comprehend all that, or a 12-year-old boy like looking at someone who's up on stage and he's like, I want to look like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a lot of the time people don't talk about the struggle behind it, right? They want to portray this picture perfect Instagram life.
You said that you have an eating disorder yourself,
I had,
right?
yeah.
You had one? Okay. What's that like, having an eating disorder?
I describe it as being a prisoner in your own mind, essentially. So you're always just like overly conscious of what you're putting into your body. So you're avoiding social events because of it. You're feeling guilty because you had that ice cream cone and things like that. So it's easy to slip back into something like that because you compare what you looked like then versus how you look now. And you're like, oh, I had way less fat then. But then you think of like the mindset you were in back then, and you're like, I never want to be that again.
Yeah, I almost had an image disorder. I wouldn't say I ever had an eating disorder, but in terms of, I got obsessed with the aesthetics, became a narcissist, so obsessed with the person in the mirror and having a six-pack abs. And it was actually, and so the things that I would do, so the supplements and things that I would take, and it was just like tons and tons and tons of them. And who knows long-term what kinds of effects those can have on your body, because there's not a ton of research in terms of FDA or whatever the Canadian equivalent is. Mm-hmm. So just in terms of what are the long-term effects of high doses of vitamin B12, because you're getting thousands of percentage, just all these things that you're loading in your body. And essentially pre-workout, I'd say similar to an energy drink. So having that before every workout, just long-term what that's going to do to you, because we know energy drinks now they want to make them so that it's above 16 or something that you can purchase them, or even
really?
Just because
that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, if your body's still developing and you're tossing that many chemicals in it, it can't be very healthy.
However, I'm on the fence of like things like that, because it's almost like if you put that age restriction on it, it's almost like more kids want to do it now, right?
It's a tough balance.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it almost makes it more cool if they can get access to it, because it's the similar to alcohol.
You're limiting access, but then they're always going to find a way around it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But no, and then I'd say I come to a place now, and I see my mind just in terms of being in optimal fitness for these races, almost going back to that. But I look at the way that I'm doing it now and currently taking no supplements other than MCT oil derived from coconuts for cognitive function. So I'll admit to that one. And literally eating a paleo-based diet and seeing almost the same results. And it's like, but I feel like I'm doing it that much more healthy. Mm-hmm. Although I do drink too much coffee as well. So I'll admit to that. So I'm open with my faults and maybe my excessive habits.
I don't know if I've ever had an eating disorder, but kind of in between with you and Riley there, and Riley with the image problem. Because I used to be 350 pounds at my heaviest, and I dropped from about 350 down to 205 in about a year and a half from just running. That's when I became a marathon runner. And I remember looking myself in the mirror every day, and I always saw the old person I used to be, even after losing 150 pounds. So I always thought I had to keep losing weight. And it wasn't a wake-up call only came when so I started eating a lot less until a point where it came, I was running 2-3 times a day, and then I wasn't eating enough. So what would happen is I would start to almost black out. I'd get these like flashes in my vision.
Oh, really?
Until one day I fell down the stairs, and like I was just going downstairs. I blacked out for a second, and next thing I know was the bottom of the stairs. And it kind of became a wake-up call for me that I was like, hey, maybe I need to start like watching what I'm eating, because it came to a point where I was like, that less wasn't necessarily good, whereas I kind of built my mindset on like less was good. Mm-hmm. So I don't.
Do you remember Meadow Soprano? I forget her real name, but from The Sopranos, she actually struggled with. Well, she struggled with workout anorexia, so she would count her calories from food and then workouts, and so she would make sure she was working out way more than she was consuming.
So she was always at the crazy calorie.
Yeah, so she was essentially always losing weight because she was getting rid of more calories than she would ever consume. And so it got to a point where they needed an intervention with that as well. And I'm not talking the show intervention, but basically they stepped in, saw that she was losing so much weight, and then to get her back to a healthy place again. But yeah, I think it borders on that, right? Because you just say, I want to be skinnier and skinnier. And even right now, I think of my optimal fitness, and I do have a weight goal for that because I think I'll be able to move better. I mean, you see runners and you see 150-pound runners in terms of males. And I go, well, I'm never going to be that, but I want to be optimal. So there's a goal there, but I think of just eating. I make sure that I'm not hungry, that I'm eating well, and that I eat often, and I'm always having a spoonful of peanut butter whenever I'm in the kitchen. So I think it's really difficult because it's constant maintenance. And so it's, again, the same thing as injuries. There's so many things that just occupy your mind that you have to stay on top of all the time. And that's one of them too. Just in terms of where these habits are stemming from and what you can do to stay on top of things.
Yeah, because they all come from a different place for different people. Like going back to the control freak thing, something happened in my life where I felt like I was not in control. And I felt like controlling my food was an easy way to get it back.
Yeah. No, that can definitely happen. I did want to know if most of these projects that you're doing are volunteer-based, and if you ever feel spread too thin amongst your projects and career and life balance as well.
Yeah, these are all volunteer. And I actually feel like I'm really good at managing my time, and I always need to be busy. So I haven't felt spread too thin yet, to be perfectly honest. Like when Chain for Change was in its like week out from, I felt stressed, but it was just because I wanted it to be successful. Like I feel like I have a good support system as well. Like my family's great, my boyfriend's great. But yeah, I think I just manage my time really well.
What kind of system do you use to manage your time? Do you have like a Post-it notes system?
My phone calendar is my
calendar.
life. Yeah.
Okay.
Phone calendar.
Yeah.
Because we started using the Trello board that Jessica uses because it's a way we can have both of us on the same list and be able to basically communicate the goals and things that we've done. So it seems good to have that, but I swear by my notebook as well for just having tasks and having things. But I've used a bunch of different ways in the past.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a good way to manage your time. I actually went back to the Trello thing. Even today, I was actually organizing my own personal. So I don't know if you know what Trello is. It's kind of like a checklist app in a way, but you have multiple boards that you can create. So you can kind of create different categories to organize your thoughts or whatever project you're working on into different categories and then create checklists in that way. So it's a way to manage multiple checklists at one time, essentially.
And you can have different people on.
Yeah. So you can invite different people in groups to kind of add and change things if you want that, or just a few things. Yeah. And you can tie it to your calendar too, so you can automatically set due dates on things that on your calendar.
Yeah, I'm hooked. The calendar. Yeah.
Trello, if you do want to pay us for...
What's up, Trello? That's funny. So I did want to know too how you inspire people to get involved and give back as well.
Most of the things I've done have been linked to a charitable venture. Spurs Bras Squad isn't. It's more of a personal thing, but to open up our runs, we have a question, like a weekly question. Like this week's, it was... how do you deal with criticism or judgment in a positive way? So we actually go around, each person introduces themselves. So and they answer the question, obviously. So when you can connect someone with a personal why, that's the biggest reason. So for Chain for Change, for example, who unfortunately hasn't been affected by cancer? So that was a big draw for that. Winnipeg Is Good. It was just here in Winnipeg. And like I said, people who didn't even know what was going on in hockey, they just saw the message, and putting it on influential people was helpful for that also. So you leverage people's positions, but you find their why too, because you're not just going to be like, hey, wear this. And they're going to be like, no. So you find out why they would want to do that. And with Spurs Bras Squad, it's people being able to share their stories and know it's in a safe spot.
Yeah.
So is it always a different question that's asked?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, every week.
Again, I pull the mic a little bit closer.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I keep leaning back.
It's fine. It happens when you're in natural conversation, just to want to turn to the person and just get
it's good. It means you're getting comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. Oh, one of the side notes was with the running. I saw in your Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service one that you're that your page said "Will run for beer," and I thought that was the best slogan.
Yeah, I love beer,
So-
especially local.
Nice.
Especially local. What's your favorite local beer?
It was Peg, and then they closed.
Peg City Brew Company closed?
Peg Brew Co. Yeah, it was a while ago. Guten Tart, best beer ever.
See, I wasn't a fan of the Guten Tart. We
Really?
had that on tap at a restaurant I worked
Oh,
at.
I haven't
love
tried that
Guten
one.
Tart. And you never will, unfortunately.
If you find it now, it's in the back of somebody's freezer, and it's probably way
Go
outdated.
knocking house down, house to house to find one.
So, in terms of growing up in Dryden, Ontario, I say woo because I put it in parentheses because my grandparents lived there when I was young. So, I'm actually familiar with Dryden, Ontario, and the smell that the paper mill has.
That's
too.
I was waiting for you to say that. Everyone says that. They're like, oh, that's Stinky Town. I'm like,
It's funny because I can go back in my memories, and I actually didn't have a problem with it when I was young, but it's only like thinking back to it, I remember the smell, and rarely do you have a smell memory.
Smell is the thing that like sparks memory the most.
I've heard that. Yeah.
But I worked in the mill in the human resource department actually, and it only smells if something's wrong. It doesn't always smell. Yeah.
If you go to Dryden and it smells weird, then get out of town.
No.
Yeah, something's going wrong.
Don't stay there.
Got to get out of there. So I wanted to know what made you decide to move to Winnipeg after traveling to Europe, Australia, Thailand, and the Philippines.
Well, when I was living in Australia, I met a girl there, and we ended up traveling to the Philippines, and I came home because I was broke. And I was originally just going to work for a couple weeks or months, however long it took to save up to go to India. But no offense, Dryden, I was there for a couple weeks, and I couldn't stay there. And one of my girlfriends, she had just moved back from the UK, and she was a teacher over there, and she was moving to Winnipeg at the end of summer, and I just decided to tag along. Like, literally, that's it. I'm just like, yeah, I'll move there.
That's it. Back to
Yeah,
Winnipeg.
Just on a whim. Eh?
Move to Winnipeg.
I'm like, oh, I'll make it work somehow.
It's funny because I feel like Winnipeg's this bubble that once you get entrenched, it's just this big, small town. So I feel like you've already embraced that with having Winnipeg on one of your slogans.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and on the T-shirts and everything.
And I'm seeing it more and more. Like, for example, you're like, I've seen you before. I was like, oh, yeah, I taught you to do a headstand in the gym. No.
I'm still trying. I was working on them today too. It's a process. I'll tell you that much. I keep falling, but at least I think I know enough to fall properly.
I was gonna say, at least put a mat under you or something.
Yeah, well, except for when I do them against the wall, but I feel pretty safe when my feet are propped up against something. So
Yeah.
it's a process, but the thing is, so it's a bunch of Spartan racers can do full headstands, and they'll do them with the sort of the bars, the parallel or whatever, parallel bars, and they'll go from sitting on them and then all the way up into a headstand.
So impressive. Yeah.
I know, and so they'll take video, and even the one guy, Terry Dorge, shout out to you because he'll do handstands on absolutely everything, and he'll do them from out of the pool too. So on the edge of the pool, he'll just prop himself
What?
up all the way
show off.
into a handstand.
Seriously, I'm jealous
and
though.
then right back in. And he did it on a really
That's
shady
impressive.
roof on the mountain that we were about to hike. There was a little chalet thing, and he climbed up and did a handstand. He says it's controlled. What is it? Controlled? I would say idiocy, but but he knows what he's doing, and he's comfortable enough in doing it in almost any situation. But it's that one-upsmanship. I want to be able to learn the things that
the
they
sole
know
reason.
that they know how to do. Very much a tangent. But I wanted to know how you feel about traveling and how that helped shape the person that you are as well.
Well, I've always kind of traveled with my family because my mom's from Germany. So I wasn't unfamiliar with it. But the solo travel aspect, that's what changed everything. So you learn so much about yourself. You realize, like, you can do it on your own. And it really, really elevated my confidence. And I would recommend a solo trip to anyone.
Yeah, it wasn't a long-term travel trip, but when I was in university, I saved up for a full year and went to Australia and then Fiji.
Okay.
And went by myself. I didn't know anybody. It was with a group called International Student Volunteers.
Okay.
And so I was traveling with a bunch of students across North America. So it was nice to be able to basically have a group that I was going to go meet and entrench myself with for the next month. And that experience was super rewarding just to escape the country and just see a completely different landscape.
Yeah.
I had the sense when I was landing in Australia that it was, if you've watched, why can't I think of the movie with the blue people?
Avatar.
Yeah, Avatar.
Oh, okay.
So
I was
I
gonna
was
say
thinking of blue
Smurfs.
people in
Yeah.
Australia.
Smurfs.
I'm
Smurfs
like, what?
would be-
There's blue people in
they're
Australia.
not
They're
blue
everywhere.
people.
No,
They're-
just
you
kidding.
didn't know?
They're
Blue
among
people
us.
are all the rage. No, when I was landing there, that it was the Avatar world. And
Where'd
that
you
it
fly
was,
into?
Um,
I'd imagine
I-
Sydney, but
Sydney, but then we landed in Tasmania. So my
Oh,
volunteer,
cool.
so it was half a volunteer trip, and then we did adventure tourism all across the East Coast. So yeah, I got to go to Tasmania, but landing there and seeing rolling hills, eucalyptus trees, and wallabies in the distance just hopping around was awe-inspiring because I mean you maybe have seen them on TV or sometimes. Oh, and I almost got into a fight on that trip with an albino kangaroo. It was definitely
kangaroos are vicious. Wallabies are
I feel
okay,
like you'd
but
lose that fight, Riley.
it had an albino kangaroos. It had red eyes, and it was puffing its chest at me, and
That's
was
terrifying.
on the other side of a 5-foot fence. And I went, "This kangaroo can probably jump this fence."
It was getting ready, yeah.
Plus, they have razor sharp claws too, don't they?
Yeah, they're pretty vicious.
Yeah, they'll
No
kill
more.
you.
But I mean, I did eat kangaroo on that trip. So
Did you like it? I felt like it was disgusting.
kangaroo burgers were delicious. I found the kangaroo steak that I had was really,
no
really
good.
gamey.
Yeah, same. It was just too tough. And then another thing though, with traveling by yourself, it's like you can reinvent yourself. You just go and you're just whoever you want to be. You know what I mean? Not in a weird
Put on
way.
some mono glass. and
No,
just like, hello.
it's really therapeutic.
So did you have a moment there where you felt completely yourself, or maybe that find yourself moment? I don't want to be too
It's
cliche.
so cliche.
but-
Actually, when I went to Thailand, because that's kind of what made me move to Australia, because I met these guys there who were doing an online travel show, and we ended up going out in Bangkok that night, and I ended up waking up on a roof in Bangkok, soaking wet, being like, "Where am I?" kind of thing. And then those guys, they were just super chill. They're like, "Hey, do you want to hitchhike with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." So then we ended up hitchhiking across Thailand, but I don't know. I felt like I was just really myself.
That's hitchhiking. You found.
I
you
found
felt
myself
really
hitchhiking with two
yourself.
randoms.
That's incredible though that you're actually able to do that. I haven't been outside North America. I've moved across Canada, but never gone to a different country or continent.
It's something that I strive for. I wish I could do more traveling, but it's just in terms of having the time, money, and whatever else, and like having the idea to do it and planning it takes
Don't
a
plan.
ton.
That's the
Just
key.
go.
Just go.
See, well, one day I want to do the Europe trip. I said I want to go to Rome. Is probably the number one on my bucket list to see the Colosseum
That's
because
pretty
I love Roman history and mythology. So that's somewhere there that I want to see at least before I.
Biggest
before I
place
go.
to get pickpocketed.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. I'm
No,
like,
So-
I'll tell you a funny story actually. So when we were in Rome, I was there with my best friend, and we were just eating at this cafe, and she had her phone on the table, and there's a lot of like younger pickpocketers. So this little boy runs up and slams his map down on the table, and he's like, "How do you get to the Colosseum?" And my best friend, she's way too nice, and she's just like, "Oh yeah, you go here," and she's like trying to draw this map for him and everything, and he's trying to just yank away, and then she's like, "Oh no, wait," and she's just being so nice, and then this kid just runs away, and she's like, "Oh, I hope he finds the Colosseum." And then she's like, "Where's my phone?" I'm like, "Yeah, that kid's got it." And she's
pretty sure
like,
he knows where the Colosseum
yeah,
is.
the whole time because Paris is really bad for that too. There's a groups of kids that run up to you and they're like, "Sign my petition," and then they pickpocket you because they'll swarm you. So just heads up.
Good to
Yeah,
know.
that is good to know that there's little kid pickpocketers around in the world.
Yeah,
Don't keep your wallet in your back pocket.
exactly.
Front pocket carry.
Just have a fanny pack.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
Actually, I am a big fan of the fanny pack. I
They're
do want to
great.
bring them back. There's one girl at the gym who does wear a fanny pack, and I'm kind of jealous of it. I think it would be great because I have this it's called a flip belt for running long distances. So
Oh, okay.
I bought it for the Spartan races, and it can hold gels, and I even had waffles, so I had my breakfast on the mountain as I was trudging along.
Oh,
and
wow.
So it was a little honey stinger waffle thing.
Those are so good.
Yeah,
I
it
love
was.
them.
That was my breakfast that day. It was. I'll always enjoy. It was like the tastiest thing because it's all sugar and
Yeah.
just deliciousness
good.
at that point. Yeah, I don't know where I
No,
set off on
where
this
did
whole
come
thing.
from? Yeah.
Pickpockets to
Oh,
eating
yeah.
on the trail.
Oh yeah, I did want to know if you had any travel tips for people other than the pickpocketing.
Oh yeah, I can tell you about that now. Travel tips. Be more specific.
Well, in terms of is there a way that you picked exactly where you wanted to go, or are there certain things that you found really helpful in terms of just when you were there, resources that you used or anything?
I think like just take a globe and spin it and then close your eyes. No, pick somewhere you want to go, do a bit of background research, like kind of map out the things you want to see, because that was we went to Barcelona and didn't research anything. Like, yeah, we're just gonna show up. But there's like the old Olympic Park I would have loved to go see. This one church that is super famous, can't even remember the name. Didn't go to see that. So do a bit of background research, because you don't want to go home and be like, oh, I could have seen that. But keep it loose. Like, don't try to plan your entire trip. That's my biggest tip. Don't try to plan it from start to finish, because you're going to be stressed out the whole time. That's not fun.
Yeah, I think it's having time to just enjoy the experience and be spontaneous in a different country.
Yeah.
But then if there are those landmarks or those places you really want to visit, just making sure that they're also in there too.
Exactly. And a budget, obviously. Like, have a tentative budget, but at the same time, don't be too stingy.
No.
When are you going to be
There's some people like that, and I've traveled with them before, and it doesn't. I get really stressed out when there's like this hour by hour schedule or day by day schedule that people go on. And I'm like, sometimes I would just want to go over there because I saw it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then it's like, oh no, wait, that's not on schedule or time budget or anything. It's like, okay, well, bye.
Yeah. No,
and those are the people you ditch.
I'm going to do this anyways.
Which is what happened actually when we went to Las Vegas the first time. There's we had a big 15 person group. And ended up being split, and I ended up with like 3 people because we just wanted to do our own thing, and everyone else was like, we got to go to this buffet at this time, and this club here, and this casino then. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna go here.
And that's another tip, actually. Really be choosy with who you go with if you go with other people. That's what's also great about going by yourself, is you meet awesome like-minded people, and you can travel with them for a couple of days and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go off and do this, and it's like no hard feelings or anything. Versus I went on a trip one time with 4 of my girlfriends, and one of them, it was awful. And my other 2 girlfriends the whole time, they're just like, why did you invite her? And maybe I shouldn't be saying this. But yeah, be very selective of who you go with.
And don't be that friend.
Don't be that friend. If you're going with people, be like, compensate for what they want to do too. Like, make a group decision. Sometimes, yeah, separate. Because the girls I went with, 2 of them were super into CrossFit and they want to go to CrossFit gyms, which was fine. I did not want to do that. So I separated with the other girl, and we went and did our own thing. So
yeah, it's being willing to talk it out and be willing to compromise.
Exactly.
It's funny because it teaches you, well, in the same thing, having roommates or living with people or even having partners, it's very much the same. It's a whole nother level, but it's along the same lines. It's those interpersonal relationships, and oftentimes that can make or break a trip. If you're dealing with somebody else who's constantly stressed or constantly or has to do those, check off their boxes on the list, and you're not that travel type. Yeah. Because there are different travel types, and some people, their idea of a great travel vacation is sit on a beach and have an open bar or whatever.
Mojitos all day. Yeah.
All inclusive. Which there's nothing wrong with that. And some people love Disney World for that. The fact that you can go do the rides and whatever, have some drinks, and that's pretty much it.
I know I can't stand being in one place for too long. Like, I have to see things. I don't need necessarily the plan, but to be the person that sits on a beach and just drinks all day, do that maybe for a day or 2, but like,
it gets old fast.
It gets old fast. Yeah, I want to be adventurous, like see what the sights are. And
I think that's even my life theory now, is have a plan of maybe not a direct plan, but have a couple of things, and but be willing to just scrap that if something better comes along.
Be willing to change.
Hey, be open to change.
Change is the word of my year. Yeah.
Change is it. Flamingos are the animal of my year.
Flamingos?
The year of the flamingo.
Well, my flamingo shirt, so I say that.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I'm on the search for the world's best flamingo shirt, and
How many do you have now?
Go to Transcona. They have a whole line, apparently.
Actually,
seriously, yeah.
This is a side note, but I did find out that flamingos are an international sign for swingers. So apparently I might have to change animals.
No judgment here.
Go to dodo birds.
Dodo birds, but they're extinct, so it's not as fun. Flamingos are also pink, so they're just lively, and they're party animals.
How many flamingo shirts are you up to now?
I have 3 flamingo shirts. Yeah.
Should have wore it today instead of your fake.
My fake and my purple, my lavender color shirt. And so you said that after, well, in the notes that you so graciously gave me, said that after university you decided to do the traveling. And so I wanted to know if you feel that there's too much pressure on young people to go right into school and get their degree and get a job and grow through life that way.
I think that was the old norm, and it's shifting, which is great because I almost want to link it to midlife crises, right? It's like you go from one thing to the next, and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, well, I'm 45. I haven't been outside of my country. I'm going to leave my family and go. But it also depends on, your family and who you're surrounded by and what your support system is like. So I think it's shifting, but it was traditionally how it was. And I'm just so grateful I did what I did because now I'm just like, okay, I've done it. And I'm happy to stay in one place. It's hard at first to come back, but.
There's something to say about the life experience that, I mean, the people that speed through school and get a degree and then get into their career, sometimes they end up being the worst employees for the fact that there's nothing beyond that. They're maybe really good at sitting down and memorizing textbooks, but what if they had to work a job to have the money to go travel, and then have they traveled and met people and had to learn
People
street
skills,
smarts and
basically,
people skills and maybe hitchhiking with
Right.
strangers,
All they know is school,
trustworthy
right?
strangers, right? And if all you know is, maybe you have a 4.2 or 4.0 GPA.
Yeah, how
but
does that translate?
How does that translate into career and working life? And oftentimes, some of the book smart people struggle with those social skills as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely feel that I do feel that it's shifting though as well.
Yeah.
But then I would also say that there's a quarter life crisis now that.
Is that why you're laughing? Is that what you're in?
Well, you pointed
Riley,
right at.
Riley, he points it at every podcast.
I would say, we have.
It's just fine. It's fine.
Well, now that it's
You
been
talk
brought
about
up.
your quarter life crisis.
Well, no, but
It's
I know
important.
we've talked about it a little bit ad nauseum, but just the fact that basically 25 hit and I'd worked a job out of university and enjoyed it, and then looked at starting my own company in youth programming and didn't find a way to unroll that, didn't find a way that it would be financially successful.
Yeah.
And so I went, well, I wanted to do this. I had the energy to do this. I had the idea and pursued it, but there was no way of making it monetarily successful, AKA providing for myself and being able to live life. So I went, I guess I got to get a job, but then it was, what do I want to do? What do I want my impact to be on the world, and what constitutes success for me? And I started to ask myself these really difficult questions, and it led me to these maybe bouncing around a little bit, but now I feel that finally with what I'm doing, and I would say a year later, I definitely hit a low last summer, and then to where I'm at now is I have a vision of what I want my future to look like, and things will shift and things will obviously take priority at different times, but I finally feel in charge of my own life, which is really empowering and really cool, just in terms of especially knowing where I've come from, in the sense of not knowing and going through plenty of months of just frustration. And it's funny because rarely do you take the time to look back. You think of what you're going through now as being super difficult, but when you stop and take a look around, I know I was even in my new place the other day and looking around being like, none of this was here a year ago. None of the projects that I was doing, my job that I'm working at,
it's important to reflect.
And taking those little times to reflect. It's like if you get stuck in past accomplishments or things that have changed, you stop striving forward. And then again, if you get worried too much about what's to come and building towards that, you don't enjoy the now enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and on the other side too is that if you can't appreciate where you came from, sometimes you get stuck now and you have to look back to see how far you've come to notice oh yeah, you know what? I'm not stuck. This is just a stepping stone in the whole grand scheme of life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So everyone has that. I think quarter life crisis is a good way to put it, and I think almost everyone has it.
Yeah.
Now, I know I didn't start university till I was 24, and I jumped around everywhere. I went to film school in Vancouver, to the Coast Guard on the East Coast, complete switch, and then eventually just to come back to Winnipeg to go to university. So.
You got to experience that stuff too, because right out of school, I went to school to be a teacher and didn't like it. And then I took a year off, and then I went to HR, which I liked for then. But now I'm not really working in HR, which I'm fine with, because the direction I've taken with the things I've gotten involved with is taking me somewhere completely different. The one constant has been people. So it's just getting involved with things that you're interested in, and it'll open a lot of random doors.
it's funny because I even wrote at the top that it was degree in human resources, but I knew that you're a kindred spirit. But saying that it's people, and I think that that's my goal. Like I always say, making a positive difference in people's lives. And I respect the people that are animal people or that are planet or that are any sort of, if you're trying to do good in the world, Winnipeg's good too.
Exactly.
But yeah, there are good people in the world trying to do good things and make a positive impact. And I just know that I can have the biggest impact on people, and that's what I'm passionate about as well. So it's when your goals fall in line with that, but then it's even knowing that all those jobs that you had in the past and all those different things that you're doing, you draw experience from that. Yeah. And so I never look at the things that have happened in the past as negative experiences and or being meaningless. It seems that it's all come together and being helpful in who I am now, and then even those skills that you can take forward into either any career or any project or anything in life. So I find that extremely, extremely valuable.
Yeah, and lows contribute to that as well, right? Because like you said, you don't look back and it's negative now. It's like a learning experience. And if you can turn a low into a learning experience, that's the most important thing, because not everyone can do that either.
So along the same lines, I wanted to know, what is the most difficult thing you've been through and how you got through it?
I think it would have to be the eating disorder, because it impacted a lot of people around me. Like I just remember my mom looking at me one time and asking me if I was sick. And in hindsight, like everyone now looking back can see what was happening. But as it was happening in front of them, it's like you kind of get in a denial as well. But coming out of that, and now the people side too, right? Like if with Spurs Bras Squad, if I can maybe direct someone away from that path, then I've done like what I want to do.
Yeah, I would say very similarly. I had a similar experience. It was, so last summer, I actually had my own mother ask me if I was depressed. And it was the first time somebody pointed it out to me. And I'd never really...
It shakes you.
It shakes you. And I got emotional instantly because it was somebody understood or just at least knew
acknowledged
it. And I felt that was maybe a caveat in helping me heal and progress forward, is just, and so I didn't pursue going to a psychologist or any sort of treatment in that sense, and because I felt strong enough to deal with it personally, but I definitely was in that negative state and just, and it could have went worse.
Yeah.
But it was just the fact that I was able to speak openly about what I was going through and that state that I was in. It's almost just, it alleviated that weight that was keeping me down in a sense. And so it allowed me to progress forward.
Yeah, and like the second part of that question, which I did not answer, I remember exactly what kind of like shook me too. Because yeah, my mom asked me that, and the guy I was seeing at the time, he was not the best for me at all. But anyways, like at one point, because I started doing CrossFit and started like working on myself more and like just getting that confidence back. And I just remember he looked at me one time and he's like, "Your thighs are getting pretty big. You should start running more."
Ooh.
And I was just like, F you. And that's what like shook me. And I was like, you know what? No, I don't want to be like this anymore. People can't tell me who I should be, you know? But yeah, it just takes that one thing.
Yeah, I get that. And it's tough to get those negative influences out of your life as well. Whether sometimes it's friend groups or partners or things. And it takes a lot of strength and inner strength to be able to say that I have to distance myself. I know we were talking about it a little bit before the podcast of your friend groups sometimes shift. And
totally.
Well, sometimes they evolve when you're in them and they start doing negative things and you distance yourself. But yeah, I mean, it can happen. It's unfortunate. Sometimes it's really difficult with family, especially where it's the blood relation and the growing up with them and you have that bond. And yet you have to know who's worth putting the energy into maintaining those relationships, because there's those people that matter no matter what. And then there's the people that steal your energy and bring you down.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the conscious choice that you have to make to either move away from those people and hopefully they find whatever it is that they need or a way for them to live more positively. But oftentimes that's their own path and you have to find your path forward. And that's happened, I can say, multiple times in my life where it's shifting either who's surrounding me or sometimes it's internally too, and just saying that. And oftentimes they happen together as well. It's that personal evolution can distance you from people and vice versa.
And it should. And I feel like a lot of the times when I've had people in my life, I know what maybe I shouldn't. I take personal ownership for what they're going through, and I want to fix them. And you just have to accept that you can't fix everybody.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. I think a lot of people feel guilty if they leave someone behind, but sometimes you got to put yourself first. Like your own well-being speaks. Like if you're not doing well yourself, how can you help someone else, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you got to help yourself and kind of push the people who are negative or poison or toxic in your life away from you. And I'm a firm believer of the saying that you're like the 5 closest people around you.
I love that saying. Yeah, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's been something so cool about having what I would say is meaningful conversations on this podcast, is just realizing there's like-minded people who want to do good things in the world. And just, it's nice to just know that there are other people in the same mindset that are wanting to do similar things. And it's a sense of community. And just even knowing, and it's not that you have to see people every day or anything, but just to know that you've had that conversation and it's there for you to listen to.
Yeah.
And then, and it's, I mean, we've had all Winnipeg guests too. So
That's true. Yeah.
These are Winnipeggers doing great things and being successful in their own right. So it's really rewarding.
And that's what you should fill your social media with if you want to lift yourself up, right? Like follow those people who are going to be putting a positive spin on your day versus the body ideals that make you feel like crap.
Yeah, that's actually something we were talking about recently too, and just social media and our following, and how we didn't want to just kind of sell out and just kind of be one of those people like, oh, follow for follow, right? But we also want to expand at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I want to give people the opportunity, and I had to I'm always skeptical, and even of my own, devices or even my own influence to do things. So I have to self-assess, and it's the measurement, the existentialist measurement against the self and my experiences and what are my core philosophies and morals. But yeah, basically the philosophy behind that is just give people the opportunity to follow you. It's not that they have to or anything. And we're not ever going to buy followers. We're not ever going to, you just want to have those people that, okay, if you buy into this is something for you, then go ahead. And the other thing is though, so I always want to be honest with things too. So sometimes that positivity can even be false, where it's, I mean, inspirational quotes, and I know that we post them, or at least meaningful quotes.
Or hang them on the wall.
Yeah, this wasn't me hanging them on the wall, but I do really enjoy that they're there as well.
Yeah, it's fitting.
But it sometimes it just gets to the point of, okay, is this really what the person's feeling or really who they are? I think it's being honest to those negative feelings sometimes too.
Yeah, you have to acknowledge them or they're not going to go away.
Because it's humanizing too.
Yeah.
In terms of if you're always saying, I'm at level 10 and I'm perfect and everything's it doesn't seem human, right? Because we all have our imperfections, we all have our downfalls, our bad habits, and I mean, if there's a perfect person, I don't think anybody's found them. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's another thing on social media is people are posting their highlight reel. And you just have to be conscious of that.
Actually, yeah, that actually reminds me of I don't know whose podcast I was listening to, but this was a while ago, on how we're so bombarded by information on social media nowadays, and we never had that until about maybe 10 years ago, right? Maybe a little longer, 15 years, when Facebook started up. And so now we're bombarded by all this information, but all this information, like things like Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, you're usually seeing the people at their best, like the highlight reels, but you don't see when people are at their worst. So when you see someone that's accomplishing all this, but you don't see the dark times they had to go through to get there.
Yeah, exactly. And just putting it out there more is just going to, again, be humanizing and make people realize that they're not weird for having a bad day.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've done a couple videos of just me sitting in the kitchen before of either these things, these difficult things that I went through, but I'll typically say the optimistic outlook or something that I have on it, because I would say I'm eternal optimist in the sense that no matter where I'm at, I think things will get better.
That's good though.
I think. And I think it's keeping sight of that. Well, it would be despair if you were in a negative spot and think that it can't get better, right?
Yeah.
So it's keeping that optimistic outlook, but obviously sometimes you go through those, I think it's ebbs and flows in life where you just have to be willing to work with it. And sometimes you have to grind through the bottom times to reach a new height and find a new fulfillment.
But I
based.
think you appreciate those peaks when you experience those valleys. It's not, if you don't have those valleys, how can you appreciate how high you are, where those accomplishments lie, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I see people that post about wanting to be eternally happy, and it seems it's super unrealistic,
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't exist.
I mean, maybe with machines or with pill form, whatever, that you could get to a state like that. But would you really? But then you would
It's
stop
not true
appreciating
happiness,
it.
though. Yeah.
No.
But what is happiness?
Exactly.
Here we go. Yeah.
We had the philosopher on last time, so get into a long philosophical debate. But to me, so the term that I look for now is fulfillment. And I've said this before too, but and it's in different realms of life. So it's, for me, it's having something that I'm passionate to train for. So these Spartan races, having intellectual pursuits and those social emotional relationships, and just making sure, and I would say spiritually, so the sense of keeping, and that's just making a positive difference or being a positive influence on the people around me. I think at the core, if that's your spiritual outlook, that you're living a healthy life.
Yeah. I'd say sorry, go ahead.
No.
I'd say if you can change at least one other person's life, you've done a lifetime of work already.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, and crazy enough to think
Not saying that you should quit after changing just one person's life. But
It's just like, okay, bye. I'm out.
yeah.
true, but even the little things that have happened of people listening to this podcast or people that have come into contact with us, like those little changes or those little things that I don't know if you've had people reach out in the same way.
I've had my own clients listen to the podcast, which I thought was crazy because I didn't want to be the person that advertised to my own clients.
Yeah.
But then they ask how your day's going, and then I'd mention it in passing, and then they'd ask the name, and then go look it up, and suddenly they're listening to every episode. I'm like, and have this positive feedback, and I'm just amazed by it. I'm like, hey, that's awesome that I've had that much of an impact on you.
Exactly. And it pushes you to just do more things like that. And like the projects I've done, that's one of the biggest reasons. Like after Chain for Change, this one guy came up to me. We were at the Common. I was just getting a beer, and I felt a tap on my shoulder. And I turned around. This guy hugs me, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Karly," he's like, "what you've done for me and my family," because he had his whole family there. He's like, "This was a healing process. My mom passed away from cancer, and this brought us all together to heal together."
Wow. See,
So,
sometimes you don't know how
No.
you're touching someone else's life, right?
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's the profound impact of just bringing people together or just putting a message out there for people too. I know that I've had somebody reach out that was in a dark place and said that the podcast and some things that that he looked at things that we were doing as an inspiration and that it helped him out of a dark place. And it was how much more, what could you ask for in terms of like, we wanted this to make an impact, but for it, even in its young stages already to be having that type of impact, it means that we're doing something right. And it gives you that vote of confidence moving forward to just continuously grow and yet not want to lose sight of those core values and that core concept that this came from.
Yeah.
So
I've talked about it before, but just like in the past 3 months, because I've been stuck, homebound for the longest time and unable to exercise or work out in the normal capacity that I could, that like it kind of, I'm not used to that because I'm usually try to be a busy person. So it's like suddenly I go from being extremely busy to, now I'm home alone and stuck with my thoughts, and you learn to face them. I didn't realize until then that coming onto the podcast, what a big effect that would come. I would look forward to doing the podcast and talk to these motivational, positive people and the changes they have. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get through this. It's just a minor setback, and I'm going to be better than ever, right? That's incredible. And just hearing about Riley's story this year, about him getting into running and getting into shape and doing 3 Spartan races this summer, like that to me, I know we've talked about it before, but like that was an inspiration to me. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I want to be able to do that one day too. So let's just, it's not, ACL surgery is not the end of the road. It's actually a good thing, right? Like that.
You're getting better.
I'm getting better, and that I just got to get through this hard time to get to the better times.
Exactly.
the part of me can't wait for you to just meet people from the obstacle course racing community, because it's similar-minded people in the same way that are, or even Sports Bras Squad, or I'm going to the Ledge tomorrow morning for, I think it's Project November.
You're going to November Project?
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
See you there.
it's so good.
That's Winnipeg for you.
Who's bringing you there?
Hands.
Did someone recruit you?
Yeah.
Damn. I was going to say, can I say I recruited you? Because there's a contest going on right now. Well, not a contest, but if you like bring someone or recruit them, you get a ballot for like a North Face prize.
Oh.
Well, apparently I've been recruited and
Who
didn't
did
even
it?
know. Colleen.
I was gonna actually guess that because I saw her there last week. That's so funny.
Well, I told her that we were having you on the podcast. So
Oh, okay. So I
Got beat to
recruited you through her, basically. No,
there you go. It's that.
no,
the-
her client
it's
brought
the
her there.
chain.
One of her clients brought her there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. So who's been the biggest influence on you?
That's a big one. Yeah. I would have to say my parents. So I'm going to share the biggest influence because my mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was in high school, actually. So she literally put her life on hold, like ever so selflessly, just to raise 4 kids. And I think that's the most selfless act any person can do. And if I could be even half that, that would be life-changing. And then my dad, and I just recently heard this year, like it was another like jolt thing, right? So we were just chatting, and he just retired this year, so that's cool for him. But we were chatting. I was like, "Oh, do you like your job?" And he's like, "No," and I was like, "What?" Because he owned a company and stuff, right? And I was like, "Well, why do you do it?" He's like, "Well, I had to put food on the table for you guys. Like I wanted to provide you guys with all the opportunities, and this was the best way to do it." And because he used to be a mechanic, like a small engine mechanic, a car mechanic too, actually. But he loved it. And he quit doing that so he could take over his dad's company so he could give us the best life. So if I could be as selfless as my parents one day, that is cool.
God, it does hit that point. I think we've talked about it, that you get to a point in your adulthood or young adulthood where you start to see all the things that your parents did. I mean, you hit those teenage years, and oftentimes they're rebellious, or you want your independence.
Yeah.
And even into young adulthood. I mean, I was still at home when I was in university, so it was just hitting a point of growth in my life, but then you're still at home. So it's a little bit of push back and push away.
Yeah.
But then when you finally move out, and then how grateful you are to see each other, but then you take a step back and you realize all the sacrifices, all the things that they've done to put food on the table, keep a roof over your head, and just provide for you. And that's a great moment when you can just holistically love and appreciate your parents.
It's the best feeling ever. And then it makes you look back on all the things you put them through, and you're just like,
go through those rebellious teen years.
Like this? Yeah, but they're literally the reason I just want to give back as much as I can.
That's great that you recognize that. I think there's a lot of people that don't, like, because it's such, you grow up with them, so they're there, right? They're your parents, you expect them to be there, but the sacrifices they make for their children is quite amazing. And I know, like, my mom raised me pretty much single-handedly, so that was huge on her part. And I almost feel guilty going back to when I was 16 years old, and it was just like the rebellious teen years. Yeah. I'm like, I'm just going to go out drinking. Things like that.
Oh, okay. Last weekend, I went home because it was we had a wedding, and me and all my siblings, we were just taking it easy that night. You know, had a glass of wine at dinner. My mom, she was just having a good time. And then around 10, and we're all like, okay, 10 p.m., we're ready to leave. And she's like, you guys won't even have a drink with your mom? And we're like, no, like, we're really tired. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to stay. So we were the ones up waiting for her, you know, like watching the clock, texting her. She's not answering. We're freaking out. But no, it's like, she's on the other foot now. It was funny. Yeah,
that role reversal. My mom's very much the same way as you. But it's nice when you can just sit down and appreciate each other's company too.
Yeah, 100%.
We do weekly dinners now, so it's
that's nice.
It's a nice way to. Have there been any books that you've read that have been helpful on your path?
Yes, I love books.
Yay!
Yay! The first one that kind of put me on a different path, and I met this other random guy in Thailand, and we ended up just like going on excursions, having the best time. Like, he was there on a business trip, but he was a super like cool guy. And
so you can't be cool if you're in business?
No, I don't know why I was so like, oh yeah, he was so cool.
But he's cool.
He was a cool guy. He was like, I felt like I was kind of like still more childish at that time, and he was like an adult, you know. But then he recommended the 4-Hour Work Week to me.
Nice.
Okay. And I was like, oh, Tim Ferriss, I don't know who this is. I didn't really read the whole book, but I started kind of reading stuff by Tim Ferriss, and I was like, okay, he's pretty cool. Then I read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Love
good
that
book. Great
Oh,
book.
It's so
Actually, just read that this year. Yeah.
So good. And The Alchemist.
Alchemist, eh?
That's on my list because it's one of the best personal, professional development literature books out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that one was a big one. I read that when I was in Australia, and it's something you can read every year and like reevaluate depending where you are in your life and like the context of it. So it's really interesting for that. But I read that in Australia, and then this isn't a book, but it's a little email you can get every morning. It's called The Universe Talks. So if you Google TUT, it just sends like a little motivational message every morning. And I'm not even kidding. Since I started getting those, my life has done a 180.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll have to look into that. I've never heard of that.
It's so cute too. And they like you fill out a profile at the beginning and you put in like your biggest dream and all this. So in the emails, it'll address things, like it'll address you by name and it'll talk about your dream sometimes. And there's always a little PS at the bottom. So don't forget to read that. But yeah, starts your day off really good.
Nice.
I would say in a similar way, that's what the vision board that I have is.
Vision boards are the best.
Yeah. And hands down, I never thought I would be the kind of person with a vision board. It
sounds hokey.
It sounds hokey. It sounds like bullshit. Honestly.
Yeah, straight up.
But yeah, it wasn't until I actually created one and I went, no, this is a visual representation of what I think will be fulfilling and what I would define as being successful and a life that I would be comfortable and happy for the most part, but that I would want to live. And it's really simple. I mean, I've said everything that's on it before, but the next step's get a cat.
Really?
Yeah.
Go adopt one.
Well, so part of the reason why I live where I do now is because I couldn't have a cat at my old place.
Okay.
And that was next on my thing. So it almost forced me to get the place, which that was another thing on the vision board, to get the cat and then I think it all just leads into itself, right? But
it's strange. The one I made before I moved to Australia, because I came home between Christmas and New Year's and I made a vision board because I do that every New Year now. But randomly I cut out a piece of a map and I saw like Prague was on it and I was like, oh yeah, I want to go to Prague, and I circled it with a heart. The girl I ended up meeting in Australia is from Prague. We ended up becoming best friends. I visited her in Prague and now she's living in Canada.
Crazy how that works out.
Right?
yeah, it's synchronicity, the things that it all seems to come together when you have that goal and that vision and you start building towards it.
And that TUT email, that's literally what that's all about. So I think you would both enjoy it.
Yeah,
Cool,
I'll definitely check it out.
See, this is the great thing about this podcast is you learn different things.
I have this like list I've started from the podcast alone of just like random things, websites, articles, books that people recommend. And my book list alone has doubled since we started this thing.
Do you have a database of that we can all access? That would be ideal.
We should make one.
Well,
we have the group. Yeah.
we have a book group.
We haven't really posted
and
in a
even we
while,
talked to Jessica about it too. So
we should.
I'm thinking bi-monthly book club is something that we should do.
There we go.
But
I like that idea.
then
I want a
also,
book club so bad.
you want book club?
Yeah, book club.
And then Jessica, she said she'd provide the snacks. I'm not
we
not
go.
just
Hey, if
volunteering.
there's snacks there.
Yeah.
At least some energy bites, and apparently rosé for her, and then probably red wine for me. At least
That
red
sounds
wine.
ideal, that whole situation.
Okay, well, let's make this happen.
There we go.
And then we already got Josh, so there's 5. I think that's
Josh
already
is,
a club.
Josh is the one that started it, yeah.
Then we can recruit some other people in on it too.
Do we have a criteria? Because I'm also a Stephen King fan, so
I think I've read Stephen King before. I can't remember which book it was though.
One of his next ones. So he's on my. I don't have a mantle. I was going to say mantle, but on my to read and/or I've already bought it. But his on writing. So I'm doing a lot of writing, and I have him and Ernest Hemingway has an on writing book.
I enjoy
too,
the
so-
movies made after his books.
Yeah, The Shining.
oh man, yeah.
But my dad's a huge Stephen King
My dad
guy.
was
but
too.
I never really gotten into it. I'm very. I keep saying entrenched too. I got to come up
that's
with.
your good word.
Give me.
It is a good word. It's,
I keep saying good, so it's fine. I put it on a shirt apparently.
Good.
So yeah,
Winnipeg is entrenched.
But-
Entrenching.
that's sad.
I forget what I was going with on this. What is something that not many people would expect about you?
I'm the biggest introvert.
That goes along with the books.
Yeah, seriously, because I'll host an event or I'll be like co-leader run club, just things where I'm out in front of people, like on social media, like all this. No, I need to go home. I need to have quiet time. I need to just be with me.
I talked to a coworker about this today. That in my youth I was an extrovert, and then I've become, and I would say I'm almost primarily an introvert now. But then I do extroverted things. I'm able to tap into that. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't know. Like my clients don't see it because I'm a very different person when I'm at work.
Yeah.
And like I'm outgoing, laughing, joking.
Time out. Are you a trainer at Keniston Good Life?
I am.
That's where you've seen me before. I used
There
to
we
go
go.
to Keniston Good Life.
It's a common theme.
When
I
That's
see
I-
people-
so funny. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, and people point out that like there's no way you're an introvert, but like no,
Yeah.
it's being around not that I don't like being around people, but being around people, especially a lot of people, for a lengthy period of time drains me out.
It totally drains
And so
me
I
too.
need that time to be just alone.
Yeah, exactly.
I find it's being able to have an on switch is important. And
Yeah.
a lot of times career and brings that out in people. If you have to do any kind of sales or if you're working with clients or things, that's when the extrovert comes out. And then sometimes home time, you just switch it off and you become the introvert and
That's
read
why you
books.
need a cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to
Well,
cuddle and, like,
that's the thing, is just that companionship and love and just having to take care of something outside of yourself is also, it's rewarding. Just it's keeping everything aligned, and also, but then you get that reciprocal love in return. So it seems ideal to me at this point.
Have you tried a plant?
I'm not a plant person.
Okay.
I'm allergic to grasses, maybe,
Oh.
and I think pollen a little bit too.
Okay, maybe don't get a plant.
It's been better this year, but yeah, it would be difficult to have plants. I
Fish?
do enjoy
They're
the
hard
idea.
to keep alive.
Really?
Yeah.
I've
I
lived
can't.
with cats before too.
Oh no, I don't mean
And-
a cat. I mean a plant.
No, I-
Cats are hard to keep alive.
Yeah, you gotta feed them. It's very difficult.
well, I thought you were insinuating with the plant that I should start small and then grow from there. But
Really?
I've
Aren't
kept alive.
cactuses are really good? They're cacti.
And succulents.
What are succulents?
They're these little guys that you don't have to water so much.
Oh, okay.
I need to get
I've never,
those.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. We go on tangents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
the
don't know
best.
where we started. Again.
So, how do you stay on top of all these projects, and what are your favorite methods to de-stress?
I think I take on projects that my heart goes towards, you know? Like I've been presented a few things where I'm like keen at first, but then that kind of passion towards it fades away. So I think staying organized goes hand in hand with like being passionate about stuff, because you want to prioritize it, but obviously you have to prioritize things that like paying bills and whatnot. But no, Google Alerts, calendar stuff is my biggest thing. But what was the second part? Sorry.
What are your favorite methods to de-stress?
Reading. Definitely reading. I just like to sit on my porch. You know those round chairs? What are the names?
Round chairs.
They're pop-sun chairs is what they're called.
I don't know what that
Okay.
is.
They're like circular and they're just super comfy. You can build like a little nest in
Ooh,
them, and
nice.
you just read or going for a run. Because I just feel like lots of people say they don't think when they run. I do so much thinking. But then at the end I feel like I've sorted things out or have a new idea. And
Fine, when I'm running, I always listen to music when I run, but I also think on top of that too. But it's almost because you go through these different processes where you sink into the run and you can listen to the music and it brings up your energy. Then you go through other times. I'll also listen to down tempo music or even classical style music.
Oh, really?
So that it's just long drawn out songs so that I can sink into it. But then
Okay.
your mind sometimes just comes up with thoughts or words, or you
Yeah.
sort through things as well. I find walking more meditative and or conducive to thinking, whereas running I'm more focused on, well, now keeping a pace, or
Fair enough.
usually there's a reason.
They say
behind
classical music's the best music for focus. So
Makes
in
sense.
terms of studying and that. So it apparently like resonates with brainwave. I don't know. I don't
You
know
have
the science
Strava?
behind it.
Yeah, I was using Strava for a super long time, and then it's the location services on my phone started bugging out,
Oh.
and it would tell me, it would come up with the most. So one time I went on a plane, landed, came out with the phone, and it had told me that I went 3,000 miles and it wasn't even accurate, and it was from the past 36 hours. And I went, and I didn't even have the app open. So I went, there's something wrong with this. And then I
That's too bad.
got rid of it.
Okay, you got to get a watch like this. And actually, Jessica just got the same one because we met through a different.
Is that Garmin?
Yeah, I love
Okay.
it.
I know one of my coworkers actually got one.
It's great. What were you gonna say?
So when I was in Calgary 2 weeks ago for the race, I was this close to buying a new Garmin 235. So I've done my research. I know exactly which
they're
one
the
I want.
best. Yeah, because then
Which version is this one?
It's a Vivo Active 3.
Okay.
That
And
was the other one I was considering.
the reason I got it is because aesthetics. Like I wanted to wear something that I would actually wear. So that was the ultimate decider for me, but it does everything I needed to do, and it automatically syncs with Strava. So that's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one too, but I got sold by the other racers on there's now a 935 that
So expensive.
that Mick has.
I'm running behind the times. I'm on an old Fitbit still, so
Well, I
It's
have
not as
nothing.
fancy as
I
that.
have 2 feet and a heartbeat. So. So final question: if you had advice for someone trying to make a positive change in their life, what would you say to them?
I'm gonna rip off Nike and say just do it.
We have it.
I know.
on
I
the
was like,
wall,
yeah, I
too.
know. No, but actually, like, just think of something you want to do and do it. Because a lot of people, they ask me, they say, "Oh, how did you do it?" And I just say, "I just did it." Because
Figure it out as you go.
Exactly, because everyone's scared about something. There's going to be apprehensions all the time, but you just have to push yourself.
Yeah. It was, that's what I always talk about, the Jen Sincero book, where it's put this book down and start something.
Actually,
something that
yeah.
you want to do.
But I wanna keep
and just
reading.
do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because it's part of that too, right? But it's getting the things in motion, getting the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use any cliche you want, but it's literally put one foot in front of the other and go do something.
Well, that's the
Whatever.
hardest part of doing anything is getting started.
Exactly. Or just start small. Like, smile at someone when you're walking down the street. Or, sometimes you're like walking down the street and you see someone wearing a nice sweater and you think it, you're like, oh, it's a nice sweater. Just say it to them.
Yeah.
It could change their whole day. And who knows? Like, for example, I was wearing these sunglasses one time and they're just like little corny heart-shaped ones. And this guy was biking beside me and we were just chatting about them. He's like, oh, your sunglasses are really nice. And then I went to work, I'm like, oh, yeah. And I told my boss about it. It's just little tiny things that can just change someone's day.
Yeah, I would say I'm a firm believer in that. Just doing
same.
the small things the small kind things can make a big impact.
Exactly.
It goes outward, right? If you were having a bad day, somebody's nice to you, and then you're a little bit happier to the next person, it just
pay it forward,
yeah. and that energy goes outward as well.
Well said.
Yeah. So how can we stay up to date with Karly Tardiff, Spurs Bras Squad, and all your other projects that you're doing?
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and it's at Karly_Tardiff.
Got the underscore in there.
Nice.
It's that old school Hotmail days.
I
No
don't
number?
even no. My old Instagram, Hotmail email was nickelbackgirl_2. Girl with a U. Yeah.
Wow.
The MSN Messenger
One thing you don't
days.
know about me. No. Yeah.
That was more the not expect question.
Yeah,
Nickelback girl.
Yeah.
It's funny because
Do you still like Nickelback?
I'm gonna say yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Silver Side
recently-
Up is a great album.
I like some of their songs.
I recently posted on my Instagram story that it was an unpopular opinion, but Nickelback has some good songs.
They've sold out now, in my opinion. They used to I feel be more authentic, and now they're like, oh, this works on the radio,
Yeah.
which is sad.
But in a way, I feel that they've almost diversified a little bit more. Before, it seemed that Nickelback was this one thing, that they played the same song a bunch of times. And now I find that they're a little bit
Branching
harder, heavier, and more intricate and interesting
they-
to listen to.
But they lost what made them kind of unique in the same way. Like, they don't have that sound that sounds like Nickelback anymore. Like, their old songs do, but their new stuff doesn't.
I feel like we're at odds here, and Chad Kroger just come on the show and explain
Chad,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're Canadian.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. You always forget because they become popular in the US and then they tour in the States and then they almost... But he was married to Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, they're divorced.
They're
now.
divorced now.
Avril Lavigne's also Canadian.
she's single again, is what you're saying.
And she was married to the Sum 41 guy before, also Canadian.
Oh, really? I didn't know
We
that.
have this whole thing. So I can marry
Go
Lights
Canada.
next, is what you're saying. She's still married. That's my...
Riley's
She's
crush.
actually on my vision board as well. as
Really?
Yeah. I have a huge crush on... She is my Canadian crush. My Romanian pop star crush was Ina, but that's a whole
Who
different...
is this?
Romanian pop star.
Why do you I just have so many questions.
There's three of them. We can leave that one for off air. But yes, you can follow us on social media at Be The Change YPS on both Facebook and Instagram. And now there's an update. We finally have a new email
And website, for that matter.
and website. The website, well, it is live.
It'll be
but
up by the time this
It should
podcast
be
goes
up by
live.
the time this podcast is out, which is really cool. And we have some unique things that we're going to do with that, including a blog. But I don't know if we maybe have some things to talk
Riley's,
about with
shaking
that
with excitement
first.
right now.
I am really excited
I thought I
about
was going to say
that
book
too.
club. I was like, oh.
Well,
Well,
that's going to be organized.
We'll have to add that
well.
onto
There's
the list
always
now,
Yeah.
these 1,000,001 projects, but it keeps life interesting. So the email, if you ever have questions, comments, concerns, or content, put on radio voice there. info@bethechange.com. We're super official now. We got .com, and that's the only dot that you have now. It used to be b dot the dot. There was somebody
Almost
Now
as
you're
bad as
confused.
underscores.
Right?
Yeah.
that somebody
Almost,
created
our
this.
entire social media almost turned into dots between every single word. And we're like, yeah, I don't think that's going to be easy to explain to everybody.
Yeah.
So I think those are our big announcements for this week.
Yeah.
All right. And subscribe on YouTube. And take care. Have a good week.
Ciao. Thanks for being on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.